Okay, welcome back to the Getting to Know You videos. Now, at this point in the kind of lesson structure or whatever, I'd like to take a small break and kind of recap a little things and kind of give you some commentary on what we've been doing. So, when we started, there was the idea of distributed versus central revision control or source control. And the idea there is that with old source control, central source control, you're dealing with one single server that has all the smarts, all the logic to manage all the different revisions, all the different branching, all that stuff like that. Distributed source control relegates that to all the different computers, right? And every computer and every folder can have its own smarts, its own logic to keep track of versions and stuff like that. And Git is a distributed revision control system. So after that, we went through a bunch of videos, and all of them had to do with just the single repository, not dealing with interacting with any other repository, right? So the very first thing we did was we talked about the basics of committing and creating a Git repository, which was really good. So Git init and then kind of Git status, looking at staged versus unstaged and committing those files. And then we played around with adding files and whatnot. And then we went into branching, which was a really big idea in terms of different play areas and context switching and working with the working copy and things like that. So there's a couple things I want to mention that I kind of discovered just in doing these videos. So I had mentioned git add dot, right? So a very common command, git add dot. And what I said was this kind of encompassed everything. It added all your untracked files and unstaged changes or whatever, right? Now, remember, that applies to this concept of these three states: untracked files and state changes, staged files, and committed. What I learned actually really quickly in doing these videos is that the git add dot actually doesn't encompass both untracked files and unstaged changes. Even though untracked files and unstaged changes go through the same life cycle, git add dot only does the unstaged changes. It doesn't actually capture the untracked files. And I did a quick test here. You'll see I have a new file dot project in there. And when I did a git add dot, the new file actually still remained in there. So adding new files you have to explicitly do. And then git add dot only does all the unstaged changes. Now the nice thing with git add dot is it still encompasses a bunch of files, but only the ones that have already previously been tracked. Okay? So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing I want to mention is the way I presented merging, I don't think was actually very accurate, and I'll probably go back and do another video on this actually. The way I presented merging was the idea of creating a new snapshot based on the commits over on your branch. So if we had our master branch here, and we branched off to a red feature branch over here, and committed something, and then when you merge the back in, I talked about creating a new snapshot for master. And that's not really accurate. A better way to look at it, and I kind of mentioned this more towards the end of the video, is you're basically applying the series of commits on that branch to the branch you're merging into. So remember at the very end we did a step 3, a step 4, and a step 5 in the instructions? Well, you're basically applying those same commits onto this snapshot. So you're basically applying that step 3 commit here, and you're applying that step 4 commit here, and then you're applying the step 5 commit here. So just those series of commits, you're applying them to the master branch. And that's essentially what you're doing when you're doing a merging. You're applying those commits to that branch rather than creating a brand new snapshot. If you think of it this way, rebasing actually becomes very easy to understand, because the idea of rebasing is you are applying commits rather than after a snapshot, before a snapshot. So it's kind of interesting that way. So I want to kind of clarify that. Okay, so and the last thing I want to mention in this kind of small break, small intermission, actually not the last thing, there's a couple things to be honest. One is we're about to go into not distributed repositories, but interacting with remote repositories. Remember how I said in a distributed system, your own local computer, your own local folder has the smarts to do everything. But what if you want to start interacting with other repositories? So that's kind of where we're going. And then maybe this is the last thing I want to mention, is that if you guys have any feedback, or again, you have any questions, just post some YouTube comments and maybe I'll gather them all and have a session on that. If you really enjoy these videos, just give me some feedback and we can generate some good stuff around this. Okay, thank you. And I won't record them today, but soon enough we'll get into interacting with other repositories, and probably most importantly, interacting with the probably best remote repository you'll ever interact with, which is GitHub. So we'll probably get into that a little later. But until then, thank you for now.